This was actually one that I recorded last. And I'm like, I have a video talking about there's something wrong with the Fever, how they look defeated, everything. And I still stand by those videos, especially because some of them are reactions at the time, right after the game. So, I mean this when I say this. Fire Stephanie White yesterday. Like, fire her yesterday. And the reason why is not that Stephanie White is a bad basketball coach. It's not that Stephanie White is a bad motivational speaker. It's not that Stephanie White is doing a bad job defending her players. It's not any of that. It's that Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark fundamentally have different understandings of the sport of basketball.
You thought, huh? The WNBA drama reached a peak last week when Linn Dunn verbally attacked Stephanie White for treating Caitlin Clark like a glorified ball passer rather than the offensive hurricane she is. This meltdown isn't subtle, people. It's full of aggression, passive-aggressive shade coaching chaos, and a dash of Indiana fury. Why is Caitlin Clark essentially on a leash? Let's break down this intense basketball soap opera. You won't believe who said what.
So I had a film breakdown prepared today, but I'm actually going to go a different direction. This is a rant because we have to talk about the state of this Indiana Fever team, and I'm here to bring the reality to all you Fever fans. This team is not a championship team. They're not a championship team. They're nowhere near close to a championship team because every team that is a championship team can play defense. This Indiana Fever team has no defense, and that's like the farthest of their problems. Their offense looked really bad today, and Caitlin Clark obviously didn't shoot the basketball well, but I'm not going to blame this loss on Caitlin Clark, even though obviously they would have won if she would have shot the ball
well. It appears that while the Indiana Fever were running an offense that looked like a group project that no one showed up for, Caitlin Clark was jogging around the perimeter like she was trying out for a Fitbit commercial. Linn Dunn didn't just wake up and choose violence. She chose a full comp press of righteous indignation and sideline sass.
To go an entire game where they have not scored more than 20 points, where they have a quarter where they only score 9 points, and to call yourself a professional basketball team is pathetic. To call yourself a professional basketball coach of that team is pathetic. I watched that whole game, and other than Ari McDonald, Aaliyah Boston with a moment here and a moment there, nobody made any type of memorable impact on that game.
Additionally, when Linn Dunn leaves, it's not a polite argument. Rather, it's more akin to a library clap. Diplomacy left the building, but what we got was a seismic altercation that blazed through every group chat on ESPN and at the Fever's practice facility. This is because one coaching decision, or rather, a series of decisions, had Caitlin Clark appear less like the NCAA scoring phenom and more like a decoy in her own biopic.
And said, man, I want to speak on some recent comments that I saw coming across about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, right? And this just speaks to a point that I made earlier about like people. It just shows that like how fickle fans are, right? And so, you know, like the Fever yesterday just lost to they lost to the Aces, right? And their record is 6 wins, 7 losses. Same thing for the Aces. Their record is 6 wins and 7 losses. But for the Fever, you know, you have people who are, you know, who want to already run the coach Stephanie White out of town.
Stephanie White's clipboard is blessed. Dunn wasn't having it when Clark's handles turned into background noise in a playbook drawn with invisible ink. She apparently thought it was a brilliant idea to turn Clark into an honorary traffic cone while the offense stumbled around like it was being called in Morse code. Let's just say the vibes were not perfect.
The reason you lost was not because Caitlin Clark didn't score the basketball. The reason you lost is because you stopped doing what was working. What works for the Indiana Fever, especially in that first half, was a pick and roll with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. All you have to do is have a pick and roll at the top of the key. Off that pick and roll, 2 defenders are going to go with Caitlin Clark, leaving Aaliyah Boston to have a wide open lane. That is just the play you should go to every single possession. But how come we never go to it in back-to-back possessions? We'll go to it one possession, the next possession we don't go to it. Why not? Stephanie White, why not? It always works. 2 defenders are always going to go with Caitlin Clark. There should never be a play where Caitlin Clark brings the ball up the court and then she passes it and she runs off the playoff ball.
This wasn't just about underutilizing a star player. It was a full-blown basketball identity crisis occurring live in 4K with popcorn-worthy levels of mismanagement. It's one thing to draft a generational talent, but it's another to treat her like a glorified cheerleader with a solid jumper. A general manager speaks with that kind of lava-laced passion. While Stephanie White may be playing the long game, aiming for balance or development or whatever buzzword gets printed on the media guide, Linn Dunn was done playing nice because there is no universe where you let the most explosive rookie in years become an off-ball ghost while the team clanks mid-range bricks like it's 1997 at this rate. Dunn appeared to be watching the same circus as the fans, Clark constantly passing it off, the defenders barely respecting her space, and the coaching staff looking like they're assembling IKEA furniture without the manual. Caitlin Clark may require a missing poster. She was last seen setting records in college and is now lost in the rotating Bermuda Triangle in Indiana. Keep in mind that Dunn isn't just a passive executive lounging in a high-rise. She is a basketball lifer, a strategist with decades of receipts, and she isn't going to allow her valued rookie to become the most well-known bystander in the WNBA. The woman essentially used her shoe to slam the panic button.
What was the game plan against her to kind of slow her down?
Well, like I said pregame, it was just to try to make everything as difficult as possible. Like, Asia's one of the best players in the world. You're not going to stop her. So we just needed to make it difficult, and I thought AB did. But Asia did what great players do, and they step up in the fourth quarter, and that's what she did. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is what we have to do as a staff to get her better looks, like higher quality looks. Every game plan is going to be to make her score inside the three-point line.
What was the strategy that caused the issue? Then, there wasn't one. It appeared that they were using a basketball and improv theater. 1 minute, Clark was running around as if she were going to do something electric, and the next, she was just relaxing in the corner as a teammate ruined another ISO attempt, acting as though it was a team tradition. You could see it on her face, that simmering polite Midwestern rage, where the smile tightens and the nods slow down, and you can tell she's mentally planning a full-scale basketball revolution. Meanwhile, fans, they went all Sherlock Holmes frame-by-frame video breakdowns. Conspiracy-level diagrams with arrows pointing in all directions made me wonder if Stephanie White was testing how often the best shooter in women's basketball could be abused before a general manager physically exploded. The irony is that Clark didn't even need the ball to reveal the confusion. Her off-ball motions essentially cried out, "Help." The FIFA attack drifted aimlessly, as if they had lost their GPS and their drive to play, while the defenders clung to her like glitter at a preschool. She was a lighthouse in a sea of mid-range jumpers and defensive breakdowns.
So yes, the definition of Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Now, I'm being kind of dramatic here, but the Indiana Fever are down coach Stephanie White for an indeterminate amount of time. She is out for personal reasons. Stephanie White and her partner, Lisa Salters, who is also a sideline reporter for some NBA games. She is a sideline reporter for the NFL. They were both out at the same time, most recently, like a couple weeks ago. This is completely a personal reason, but there's obviously something that they're dealing with at home. But the adversity that the Indiana Fever have faced this season, I don't know that I've ever seen a team just go down so many key players and key factors to the roster. I mean, I don't know if a coach would be like a key roster member, but
Done. Lynn, she didn't just notice. She boiled. Watching your franchise star treated like a floor prop in a low-budget production is enough to make any season exec question reality. She saw the shot opportunities evaporate, the spacing collapse like a bad stool, and the offense trudged through molasses while Clark stood ready, wide-eyed, untouched, ignored social media. Of course, absolutely detonated fans turned into coaches. Overnight play diagrams flooded. Timelines, people were resurrecting old NCAA footage like it was sacred scripture shouting into the void. Let her cook. Meanwhile, Fever supporters quietly whispered prayers for an offensive coordinator, or at minimum a whiteboard that isn't just used as a coaster during timeouts. By the time Dunn stepped in, the vibes were so off they needed a full-blown basketball exorcism. And if that meant airing it out publicly, so be it, because the clock is ticking and you don't draft a generational star just to park her like a bench ornament while the offense plays hot potato with zero heat. It was a basketball mystery, so bizarre it could have aired on HBO right after a mafia documentary. Who muzzled Caitlin Clark? Spoiler, it wasn't a rogue defender, or a defensive genius from the opposing bench. Nope, the culprit was sitting front and center in the coach's chair, clipboard in hand, drawing up offensive schemes straight from the How to Undermine Your Franchise Star handbook.
Is not going to work for this team. It is not going to work for this team. What Stephanie White wants to do will not work. And by the way, I'm not saying what Stephanie White wants to do is won't work in general. Won't work in general. Because it has worked. She's had success. But I'm saying what Stephanie White wants to do will not work for this team specifically. And let's take a listen to what Caitlin Clark said. And she essentially exposed that Stephanie White wants him to play slow.
Imagine giving Picasso a paintbrush, duct taping his hands behind his back, and instructing him to simply watch as interns finger paint. This wasn't a bad night. Rather, it was a masterclass in confusion plays that played out like improv scenes where nobody understood their lines. That's what it felt like to watch Caitlin stand in the corner, while fans all over the world had a collective meltdown that could have powered a small city. Reddit threads multiplied like conspiracy theories during a power outage, and analysts, former players, keyboard coaches, and everyone else threw their 2 cents into the conflagration. Was this an Olympic-level coaching blunder, or was it just a frustrated fan screaming at their TV in disbelief? This wasn't just a concerned executive peeking in from the sidelines. It was a basketball intervention disguised as a reckoning, a legacy figure who finally snapped like a dry erase marker at halftime. She didn't mince words. She didn't throw glitter on the problem and hope it shimmered away. No, she lit it up like a fourth-quarter comeback with everything on the line. Caitlin Clark is a flamethrower, not a decoy, and having that flamethrower holstered as the team struggles to make layups is sabotage, not strategy. She isn't on this squad to dish out assists like Halloween candy.